Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back into the podcast. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show, guys. Today, I am going to be giving you guys 7 keys to winning your league. And the first key is to go robust running back this year. Look, there's been a lot of debate, right? Between, should you go robust RB, hero RB, zero RB? There's been a lot of debate over the offseason about this. I'm here to tell you that robust running back is the only way to go. I mean, look, there are so many split backfields in the NFL now that the true elite workhorse running backs are so rare. And if you're not grabbing these guys earlier, you're going to be completely depleted at the position. So, why would you draft receivers early when there's receiver depth all the way through the draft? And, if you don't grab the stud running backs in rounds 1, 2, and 3, you're going to be completely depleted at the running back position all season long. So it gives you several key advantages to go robust RB. First and most obvious reason is that you are getting the most amount of points at the running back position, probably out of anyone in your league if you're going robust RB. So you already have a supreme advantage at the most important position in fantasy. And on top of that, it keeps running backs away from other teams in your league. Now, a few years ago, I wouldn't say that this was that big of an advantage, but as rare as running backs are now, if you're keeping away running backs from other players in your leagues and making it to where half the teams in your league don't even have a true workhorse running back one to start the season, you're pretty much mathematically eliminating them from playoff contention before the season even starts. Because if you have not one single workhorse running back, it's going to be very, very hard to compete in fantasy football going forward because it's a rare commodity that's just extremely valuable. Next on my list is going to be waiting for week 5 to start executing trades in your leagues. Look, guys, I know it's tempting to start trading early, but you don't really fully grasp the value of players until you're about 5 weeks into the season, because you could watch whatever happens one or two, in weeks 1 or 2 and try to judge it by that, but it's just too small of a sample size. Like, I'll give you guys an example. Last year, I had Cooper Kupp in one of my leagues. He went off in week 1, and I was thinking, man, I'm going to trade Cooper Kupp right now, sell high, and try to get somebody like, Ezekiel Elliott. And look how stupid that trade would have been. And that's because I didn't give it enough time. He just got a new quarterback in Matt Stafford. I had not enough information to come to the conclusion that Cooper Kupp was only going to have an awesome week 1 and then he was going to fall off a cliff, and that, I should try to, sell high on him. This wouldn't have been a good decision, obviously. And it's because it was too early in the season. You want to wait until week 5 to start executing trades. Next on my list is you should draft one of these 3 quarterbacks, ideally Russell Wilson, Trey Lance, or Tom Brady. And the reason I say this is because these quarterbacks are by far the best quarterback values in the draft. Obviously, it's very tempting to try to draft, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen in the earlier rounds. But the fact of the matter is, it's not good to draft quarterbacks early because you are missing out on more important positions. You should be adding depth to your running back and wide receiver positions early, not drafting quarterbacks. You can wait and get a quarterback like Russell Wilson, Trey Lance, Tom Brady, even Justin Fields. And those quarterbacks are going to give you tremendously high ceilings, almost just as high of a weekly ceiling or even season-long ceiling as some of the earlier guys like, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert, guys like that. Look, wait and draft one of those 3 quarterbacks. They're the best quarterback values in the draft. Next on my list is you want to always draft handcuffs. Look, if you're going to draft a guy like Dalvin Cook or Ezekiel Elliott or Aaron Jones, it's very, very important to grab the handcuff because, first of all, the odds of guys like Ezekiel Elliott or Dalvin Cook getting hurt are very high. I mean, we know that these are injury-prone running backs. They've seen a lot of work in their careers, and so having the handcuff that could come in and be an elite running back one when the running back in front of them goes down is a massive advantage. So, it's important to draft these handcuffs even if you don't get the starter, but if you do grab the starter, like you get Ezekiel Elliott or Dalvin Cook, it's even more important to grab the handcuffs. So make sure to grab the handcuff running backs for all of your stud running backs. It's one of the most important things you can do in fantasy. Next on my list is you want to always be drafting for depth. Now, this is critically important. So many people are just so excited to fill out their starting lineups and get their defense and their kicker and their tight end and everything like that. But look, it's better to wait on filling out your starting lineup. You really shouldn't draft your defense and your kicker until the very last 2 spots in the draft because they're the least important positions in fantasy. And it's much more important to be adding running back and wide receiver depth way before you start drafting a defense and a kicker. And so make sure to draft for depth. It's one of the most important things in fantasy. We know that injuries happen, and if you don't have depth on your team, you have a very slim chance of winning. So make sure to draft for depth. Next year on my list is you want to be playing in multiple leagues. Like, I know that people that play in one league don't want to hear this, but look, you've got to play in multiple leagues in fantasy because sample size is everything, right? There are so many random occurrences that can happen in one given league in one given season that if you're only playing in one league a year, you're not really allowing your skill in fantasy football to shine. You should be playing in 5+ leagues every single year because the more leagues you play in, if you're a good fantasy football player, which, obviously, if you're playing in multiple leagues and you're playing for money and you're playing competitively every year, you probably think, hey, I'm good at fantasy football. Well, if you're a good fantasy football player, you want to play in as many leagues as possible because the more leagues you play in, the more of an edge you have over time. So sample size is everything in fantasy. Make sure to be playing in 5 or more leagues. This is critically important. Next and last thing I have here on my list is to pay very close attention to the waiver wire. Now, I know that this is kind of a cliche statement, and everybody says, you don't win the league, with your draft, you win the league with your waiver wire. But look, this is very, very, very important. I mean, the waiver wire is just as important as the draft. And I know that a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but so many times you see guys like, Alvin Kamara from a few years ago, Eli Mitchell from last year, come off the waiver wire, and every single year, one of these players ends up being a massive league winner because, you could get them off the waiver wire, and like this can add critical depth to your team. And if you're not paying attention to the waiver wire and you're just relying solely on the draft, you're not going to win your league. You don't win your league with your draft. How you manage a trade market, how you manage the waiver wire, how you set your lineup as the season goes along. These things are all just as important, if not more important than the draft. So make sure to pay close attention to the waiver wire. And this is going to give you a huge advantage in your league. All right, guys, those are the keys that I have to winning your fantasy league this year. And hopefully fantasy leagues, like I said, hopefully you're playing in multiple. So I appreciate you tuning into the video, and I will catch you later.